Thanks a lot, Cha, and it's my absolute pleasure to be here. So thanks again to the Secretariat for having me. Thanks a lot. And again, just a quick introduction on Health AI, the Global Agency for Responsible AI in Health. We are a not-for-profit foundation in Geneva. Our role, I'm going to share more about our role within the global health landscape today. But before we get to that, I would like to share a bit on the background on how AI can be used in health, and also share with you why we think there is a strong need for proper regulation of AI in health so as to promote innovation and scale of these tools and solutions that we're seeing popping up in health. So going to the current challenges that we're seeing in the healthcare system is there's really many folds, right? And this really occurs throughout a spectrum. So in terms of research, we are seeing for medical products, medical devices, there is a long discovery period. Diseases are getting more complex. There's increasing drug resistance. What we're also seeing for diagnosis is that there's a lot of delayed diagnosis. And with the aging population, of course, you see a lot of prevalence of chronic diseases. There's also disparities in terms of healthcare access. When it comes to hospital management and patient experience, we're also seeing, first of all, a very overburdened healthcare workforce, as well as infrastructure, long waiting time, and the struggle to handle the large amount of healthcare data as more and more health systems starts to digitize itself. Finally, in terms of health promotion and disease prevention, we're also seeing how it is very difficult to monitor health determinants beyond healthcare settings, so in the community settings. But there's also delayed detection and response to emerging health threats. And this is where we think AI could really help to drive this change, right? First of all, a lot of the algorithms that we're seeing right now, they can be used for what we call digital therapeutics. They can help us understand disease mechanisms as well as to accelerate drug discovery and development. We also see that digital health and AI has been used in providing virtual care, providing remote monitoring, providing precision medicine. We also see that the AI solutions have been used to really complement and support the healthcare workforce by automating some of the more mundane tasks so that they can spend more time showing empathy, showing human connection to the patients. And finally, in terms of health promotion and disease prevention, predictive AI can also be used to detect early diseases and as well as for public health surveillance and epidemiology. And we see that potential of AI growing in the market, right? And on this slide, you see that North America basically has the largest market share when it comes to AI in health, with Europe coming in second. And most importantly, I think for the AeHIN community is to note that Asia Pacific is really one of the fastest growing market. So this is a very exciting geography area to be in when it comes to AI in health. Of course, I mean, Middle East and Africa region are currently lagging. And here again, you see where a lot of the startups and innovations are coming from. And we really do see that lack of representation from a lot of LMIC countries. So having said that, I think it's important to realize that while AI can save lives, it's actually really important to get the regulations right. Because at this point, when it comes to AI in health, we're very much in the Wild West, as shown by these AI-generated images. There's a lot of challenges when it comes to regulating AI in health. First of all, there is a lot of evolution with AI developments. So regulations really have to be very agile and responsive to emerging technologies. We also see that there's a lot of differential requirements in various countries and regions. And therefore, it is very difficult actually for innovators and developers to navigate these differential requirements. It takes up a lot of the time, which means that a lot of the startups with less resource actually do not have the capacity and resources to do so as compared to the big tech players. So there is a sense that we do need a lot of global harmonization in that part to really level the playing field for both, especially for the smaller tech startups. And in terms of data concerns, of course, we need to be worrying about whether the data that we're collecting with these AI tools are in a secure position, and also respect privacy of the patients. And finally, I think with AI, what is very much lacking in the current scenario is that we lack what we call post-market surveillance. And we see that already happening with medicines, that we do have this phase 4, what we call phase 4 trials, which is basically monitoring. It has been released to market, but for AI itself being so dynamic and so it's on a learning trajectory, that it's actually very important for us to have a very robust surveillance system to monitor the safety and effectiveness of these devices. So the other thing I want to highlight, and this goes back to my other point on global harmonization, the other challenge that we're seeing in the regulatory space is really the fact that we seem to be moving towards a fragmented regulatory landscape. Again, you see that the big countries like the US, EU, and the UK are kind of taking their own path into regulating AI. Even within the international organizations, you see that WHO and OECD, they both have released their own versions of what it means to practice responsible AI in health. So there is this need to actually harmonize that. And that's where I think where we see a need for health AI, right? So the need that we have identified is really the sense that without effective governance, we are going to increase the risk for citizens and health systems to adopt responsible AI solutions. And by hindering this adoption, we are actually preventing the realization or the potential of these AI solutions to bring better health outcomes to our patients, to our communities. And so if we think in the area of health, we are really not starting from nothing, right? If you think back at how we are regulating medicines and how we're regulating medical devices, there's a lot that we can learn from when it comes to regulating AI and health. And I put this picture here because some of you might know this drug, and this is called thalidomide. Back in the 1950s, basically this was marketed to pregnant women to be used as an anti-vomiting drug during their pregnancies. And believe it or not, at that time, the company that was producing this was able to release it out in the market without proper clinical trials. And what happened after that was a major tragedy in our health community. So basically, a lot of the babies whose mom took these tablets, they end up having birth defects, and a lot of baby also died eventually. So after this tragedy, it really prompted a lot of the regulatory authorities like FDA, EMA to really start pushing the gear on for proper regulation of medical products. And this is what we're seeing today, right? All the things that we're taking it for granted when it comes to, all medical products have to go through clinical trials, market authorization, health technology assessment. All of that actually was very much prompted by this thalidomide event. So our sense is that if we already have these foundations for us to build on, why not leverage on that? Why not leverage on existing medical devices regulation or software as a medical device? Build on top of that more regulations, more guidelines on how to actually manage predictive generative AI so that we can actually prevent a similar type of thalidomide incident from happening again in the future. So at the end of the day, when computers deal with your health, who deals with the computers? And this is where health AI, we see ourselves coming into place. So what the role that we want to play is actually a neutral, nonprofit implementing partner. So our focus is really on expanding national and regional capacity to regulate AI in health. So we believe that because of the way the AI solutions are developed, it's very important for each country to have the capacity to regulate AI for themselves and not kind of rely on, for example, FDA or EMA's approval for their own local use. And we want to do this by leveraging globally defined responsible AI standards, processes, and tools. And then what do we mean by globally defined responsible AI standards? And I just want to highlight two pieces of documents that have been released by WHO. One is the WHO ethics and governance principles for AI and health. And there you see that there are 6 main principles that one should consider, let's say, when you develop AI systems for health. The other document is, what WHO calls it the regulatory considerations on AI for health. And there again, there are 6 topic areas which look at, for example, documentation and transparency. How do you manage risk? How do you manage the data quality? How do you make sure that you do have enough engagement and collaboration going forward to build these AI systems? But the question here is, and also what we are hearing from a lot of countries is that, yes, these reports are good, the guidelines are interesting, and definitely the countries do want to implement them, but oftentimes they lack the capacity to actually translate them into their own local context and actually integrate these principles or operationalize these principles into their existing regulatory workflows. And so this is where we try and come in here. So health AI's role here is really serving, you can see us as a bridge between the normative bodies and the regulatory bodies. And of course, this bridge can go both ways, right? So on one side, we have the normative bodies like WHO, OECD, UNESCO, who are actually setting the standards. We help countries to interpret these standards so that they are applicable for their own local context. Then we work with the countries, so the national and regional regulatory bodies, to really build capacity within the regulatory teams so that, first of all, the teams actually understand AI developments and the kind of risk that they have to mitigate. And then, so we will train them in that area. And then eventually we will certify these teams going forward, ensuring that, once they are certified by Health AI, it means that they have the right regulatory pathways and they are adhering to, a minimum bar of international standards. And this brings me to the 4 core outputs that we will like to work on for the next 3 years of our organization's life. So first of all, like I said, we will try and build these national and regional validation mechanisms. So identifying who the host of these validation mechanisms will be, identifying where is the baseline of their current regulatory capacity for AI, providing them with the right methodologies and tools to actually regulate or validate these AI solutions for health. And then we will certify them. Once they are certified, basically, we will connect these different regulatory teams across different countries into what we call a global regulatory network. And our aim for the next 3 years is to actually do it in 10, what we call pioneer countries. This network has 2 functions. First, it will allow for the regulatory teams to share knowledge on their regulatory approval processes. This is important because I think at the way or at the speed that the AI solutions are coming up, it's really coming up at a very quick pace. And sometimes even the most well-resourced countries might not be able to handle the validation all alone. So therefore, it's actually good to be able to share this burden or share this responsibility across a network. So for example, within the network, if one country has actually already approved it, the other countries can actually, knowing that they have done it the same way as they have, knowing that their regulatory pathways are similar to theirs and they are adhering to the same kind of standards, the other countries can actually then expedite the approval process. The second function, which is actually really important, and it pertains to one of the earlier points I talked about, the need for post-market surveillance, is that we think this network will really serve as an early warning system for the flagging of adverse events. So when an AI incident has occurred, this gets flagged across the network so that the other countries can react accordingly. The other thing that will happen once we have this network is that you can imagine that a lot of these countries will actually start validating the AI solutions. And so what we will do is we will put all of these validated AI solutions into what we call a global public repository. So this global public repository is different from what we currently see with some of the digital clearinghouses. This is really a repository where only AI solutions that are validated within the network can be put on that. So it becomes a very trustworthy source of information for countries who are looking into procuring digital health solutions, AI solutions, to meet their local health needs. It will also serve as an intelligence tools actually for innovators to know where are the gaps that still require them to innovate in. It can also serve as a guidance for funders to understand exactly where they can invest in their next investment for AI and health. Finally, as Health AI embark on all of these three outputs, we also see ourselves then gaining the right experience and expertise to really support countries, international organizations to deliver advisory, to provide advisory services on policies and regulations. So this is just a quick overview of our implementation roadmap, what we plan to do in the next 3 years to realize the 4 core outputs that I've just shared. So the first phase, which is this year and early next year, is really about building the foundations for the AI regulatory capacity. And what we are seeing here is, of course, we will start building partnerships and a community of practice. So this was announced last month in the Economist, the Tech Quarterly of the Economist, which I can share in the link later. We are also thinking, I mentioned about the Global Public Repository just now. We are also thinking perhaps we could also incept a first version of this repository where we bring in tools that are already validated by national stringent authorities into this repository so that it's already functioning once the network is up. And of course, together with our community of practice and partners, develop what we call validation methodologies. The second year then is to prepare for standards implementation. So we will work then very closely with these 10 countries to really strengthen their regulatory teams and sustain this robust global community of AI regulatory practitioners. Once the standards are out and we hope by early next year or end of next year, once this minimum bar of international standards for AI in health is out, we can then really start supporting the implementation of these standards by applying these standards into the regulatory workflows. We can also start issuing certification to the regulatory bodies. We can start launching our global regulatory network, and we can also launch the full version of our global public repository. So yeah, at the end of the day, I think what we want to do with all this work is really the following. We really want to increase access to safe, high quality, effective, and equitable AI solutions. this would mean that we would be able to provide developers and innovators more information for market access authorization and reimbursement. We also want to set up this network, the global regulatory network for early warning system, so that, you know, patients really have access to these safe, equitable AI solutions. By making sure that we reach out not only to high-income countries, but also in particular to low middle income countries, we hope to counteract digital colonization and narrow the digital divide between the countries. By building these this sort of safe, responsible ecosystem, we believe that this will help increase trust towards the AI solutions that are coming up. It will then further increase investment and innovation in these areas. So really, first of all, creating an incentive for private developers to open up the black boxes, fostering this ecosystem where innovators really know how to scale or have a very clear pathway on how to scale their innovations. Finally, although we are not for profit, and of course we rely on replenishments, we believe that actually once the regulatory teams or mechanisms are set up in each country, the country itself could actually sustain this work without additional funding from development sources. So, you know, similar to with medicines, you can actually create a new source of revenue when people apply to get regulatory approval for their AI solutions. They could pay a fee to the regulatory bodies, just like what they're doing now for medicines and medical products. And this can create this new source of revenue for the governments, as well as then using that for added investment capacity. So I think, so one last slide from my end is that because we're a global agency, so we do have to be linked with a lot of the global initiatives that are out there to make our work even more relevant. So just to mention that we are the co-chair of the Regulatory Affairs Working Group under the Global Initiative on AI for Health, which is put together by WHO, ITU, and the World Intellectual Property Organization. We are also the co-chair of the AI for Health Working Group for the Africa CDC. I just actually, before this presentation, was in the inaugural meeting for the AI and Health Experts Group under OECD. Of course, then we are also represented at the World Economic Forum, the Global Digital Health Partnerships, as well as the United Nations. So yeah, I think we all here, I think the audience together with Health AI, I think we all want to look ahead to better health. And yeah, we hope that, you know, if there's any interest to collaborate, we are most happy to have you reach out. And I think Char can provide my email to the group once the seminar is over. So please do reach out if you are keen to collaborate or find partnerships. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Peiling. We'll have a question and answer portion later, so we invite participants to enter their questions in the chat box or in the Q&A box if you haven't already. And now, let me introduce our reactor for tonight's session. I would like to call on Dr. Satish Kalikhar, Program Lead at Wadhwani Institute of Artificial Intelligence, to share his thoughts. Welcome, Dr. Satish.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Peiling, for a nice interactive session. I hope I'm audible to all.
Yes, Doctor.
Yeah, so I will not take much time, hardly 2 minutes, and would like to thank Peiling for such a nice session. And I would like to highlight a few major points which will be helpful to the audience from rest of the world. It was nice, Peiling, when you told the need for applying learnings of devices and drugs regulations to AI also. But what I feel like the speed at which the drugs and equipments were getting innovated and the ease of assessment for them coming from the basic sciences was quite good. But the way and the speed at which the AI solutions are coming into the market and difficulty in assessing those, I think health AI plays a very key role in solving these problems of maintaining that blitzkrieg speed of AI solutions and ease of making the assessment right with collaborative efforts between two countries facing the same kind of AI solutions. Another thing what I liked very much what Peeling told about was a lot of guidelines you people will come across on LinkedIn and a lot of platforms about regulatory frameworks, standards, and all. And these nicely colored PDF documents are there. But translating those PDFs into practicality is something which is very important. I think this is also one important aspect where health AI can play a good role, simplifying those PDFs and contextualizing them into respective low middle income countries will be a very important task which health AI can go for. Sharing burden of assessment was really very nice idea because a lot of countries will now come up with AI solutions in terms of quantity and in terms of variety with the generative AI and a lot of other things. So there is a need where we all can share the responsibility of assessing the solutions and make it easy for the population which is waiting for a nice technology to get their health problems solved. One thing I would like here to have a metaphor what Peeling has highlighted is about in immunization, there is a concept of adverse effect followed by immunization. So I think in AI also something like this is going to happen, like adverse effect following AI solution into the market. So the market surveillance part, what Peeling was highlighting, is really important. The role of in organizations like Health AI or AeHIN, it doesn't stop at just regulatory passing of a particular AI solution, but there is need of continuous surveillance on that solution when it comes to the market, that it should not like do no harm principle. It should not harm to the population the way this drug happened to be done in the pregnancy cases, which Peiling has told. I'm eagerly waiting for a global repository for AI solutions because currently DPG Alliance has something like that called Digital Public Good Alliance has such kind of repository, but it is not limited to only AI solutions. It has multiple tech initiatives. Something dedicated to AI will be definitely very useful for us. And the advisory support and the roadmap which you have made it is really commendable. I hope the foundation will come up in the next year and so, and we can really march towards the actual advisory and assessment kind of activities through Health AI. I wish all the best, and let's all together make it happen to balance the explainability of AI and the assessment of AI in a proper way. That's what I can say. Thank you very much, Cha, as well as Peiling, for this opportunity to speak in such a large global platform in front of all the country guys. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Satish, for your very, very kind comments. And I really want to pick on 4 points that you said, just to really mention how important they are. First of all, really is the contextualizing, like you said, of the guidelines. And this is really what we're seeing. A lot of these guidelines and recommendations are proposed normally in the global north. And a lot of it doesn't take into account a lot of the context and cultural, ethical context of low middle income countries. So in a way, when I talk about the bridge going both ways, I hope that eventually we will also bring some of these ground perceptions and perspectives back to the normative bodies so that when they come up with their next guidelines and recommendations, then they truly reflect the ground realities. The other thing on current regulations not being able to handle the speed that AI is coming, right? So I was at a regulatory conference in Berlin last week. And of course, this is very Eurocentric and of course, US-centric as well. But it's really interesting to see that, so till I think October 2023, FDA actually approved 691 medical devices, so including software as a medical device, and only 22 of them has actually undergone some form of clinical study. Because when you get that approval, basically for a lot of the devices, they really just need a technical validation. So a lot of only 22 of them went through clinical studies and only 9 of them went through interventional trials. So if you reflect that back to what we are, the strict requirements we're giving for medicines and medical products, this is kind of, I mean, to me as an epidemiologist or a public health specialist, this is not acceptable. A lot of times, I think even for AI solutions, they need to go through both technical and clinical validation. And in order to catch up with, the speed that AI is coming up, and also to kind of handle the whole dynamicity of AI, right? Because a lot of the regulations that we have actually are more meant for drugs, which are very static in nature. I think countries really got to collaborate and work together. And finally, with the repository, I'm glad to see also that, you highlighting the importance. And really here, I think the emphasis I want to make is that it actually contains validated or regulated AI solutions. So it's not just any digital health tools or any AI tools that are in the market will be put up there. This is really going to be a more regulated or trustworthy source of information.
Yes, Dr. Peiling, I'd just like to recheck, Dr. Satish, if there's anything else that you'd like to add, or if we can proceed with the questions.
I'll just end with one line, what Peiling has told us. Now, I think AI has its own power to evolve on its own without much control on it. Now, the real role is of HI, that is human intelligence, to validate it and to regulate it so that it will ensure that do no harm principle by Hippocrates. And I think that's what we need to focus on HI now. That's what I will see. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Satish. Now, we'll proceed to the questions sent through the chat box and the Q&A box. So the first question is from Dr. Aminul. It reads, "Thank you for your excellent presentation. How can countries from low research settings implement AI in healthcare, regardless of many compliances and institutional formation?"
Thanks a lot, Aminu, for your question. I just want to clarify, what do you mean by compliances and institutional formation? Do you mean in terms of the regulations that might be coming up, or if you could explain on that would...
Yes, I'm thinking about that part, like the ethical consideration and the regulations, rules, all type of like safety, security, all the matters that I mean.
Okay. Yeah, great. No, thanks a lot. And really, I think when it comes to implementing AI in healthcare, or even scaling AI in healthcare, I think regulation is only one component, right? You need actually a lot of other components. For example, you need the right policy. So your ministries have to come together to agree that indeed AI in health is an area that the country wants to invest in. So there needs to be the right policies. The other thing that has to be there in terms of infrastructure, physical infrastructure. So you need the compute power, you need the right human capacity who is able to develop these innovations. Particularly, I would say more local innovators and developers to actually push that forward. Also, we need this harmonized standards that I talk about. And then finally, these governance structures. And I would like to say that it is actually very important. And I've heard of cases where there's talk about, okay, LMIC already have limited resources. Shouldn't they invest everything into innovation and sort of not worry too much about ethics and regulation? I really don't think that should be. That's actually, I don't think that's a wise approach, because ultimately, I think as a country, if you invest in your regulatory ecosystem, you are not really limiting the innovators at the end of the day. You're actually providing them with a very clear pathway on what are the standards that they need to adhere to make sure that, like Satish said, right? Like at the end of the day, we want to make sure that the patients are safe. So how can we enable that? And really, so I think even for low resource setting countries, if they have all of that factors that I talked about it's also really important for them to make sure that they have the right regulatory ecosystem. so that innovation can be developed, the responsible innovation can be developed, and then they can be scaled and validated appropriately. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you, Dr. Aminul and Dr. Peiling. There's another question here in our chat box. It's from Dr. Lian, related to Dr. Aminul's question. So we know AI requires resources in terms of experts in very expensive technology and infrastructure. Is there a solution approach for low middle income countries to be able to implement AI? Must be in limited resources.
Yeah, I think there are organizations and international corporations or developments that are actually trying to support more countries, especially LMIC, to gain what do you call it, the strengthening of these capacities, so both physical and human capacities. For example, like data.org, so data.org, they are putting together what they call a capacity accelerator network. And the idea is really to allow for a lot of these LMICs to gain capacity on generative AI and on predictive AI to really then develop some of these solutions locally. So I think there are existing organizations around, and I would encourage you to kind of reach out to them to work with them to build your own country's capacity to innovate in AI.
Thank you, Dr. Peiling. There's another question from Dr. Lian. Are there any tricks or tips when the data quality is low and we want to develop AI, for example, forecasting for drug needs for TB?
Yeah, so again, here I have to say that I'm an epidemiologist, so I'm not a computer scientist, but for what I understand when it comes to AI systems and the data associated with it, I think you have to start with a very, when it comes to data collection and the kind of training data that you put together to train your AI algorithm, you have to make sure that you have a very diverse set of data sets. So really making sure that if your country, let's say, has a lot of marginalized populations or ethnic groups, making sure that data from these groups actually get represented in the data sets. I think that's one of the key tricks to make sure that the quality of your data actually improves, because at the end of the day, I think the kind of outputs that the AI algorithms can come up with is really as much as what we feed it with, right? So I think I would say, especially in resources or in settings where you don't have the resource to create big data sets, big data analytics, I think the focus should be on the diversity of the data set so that you can actually help to make sure that your AI algorithm is robust enough to work in different situations, catering to different populations.
Thank you, Doctor. Our next question is from Dr. Lalita. Which 10 countries have you earmarked for this initiative?
Yeah, so so our strategy, the one that I presented to you, was actually released last October. And for the last few months, actually, we have been doing very intense resource mobilization. We have started now implementing our strategy. So at this stage, currently, we are in phase 1. We haven't really earmarked all the 10 countries yet. We have already some countries that have expressed a lot of interest to work with us. For example, we have Singapore, we have Kenya, we have Tanzania, we have Finland, we have Chile. These are countries that they have expressed interest and would likely very much be in the 10 countries that we will work in. But for the other countries, we would very much like to do it in a very systematic manner, meaning that's why we're currently doing a very thorough landscape of the AI regulations and policies, and also the stakeholders that are in place right now globally, so that we can really choose the countries that are in kind of the sweet spot where they have enough local AI innovation and yet at the same time enough maturity to take on these regulatory mechanisms.
Thank you, Dr. Peiling. Our next question is from Dr. Saimin. Thank you for a very interesting session. Where can we find out more about the statistics on the clinical validation of SAMDs that you mentioned?
Yeah, I'm trying. Let me see if I can find it on the conference website. And if I can, I will share it with Char, and maybe Char can share it with you, because this is information that I got from a conference session that I attended last week in Berlin.
Yes, Dr. Peiling, I can share the link with them after the session. Also, there's a question from Dr. Akwasi. Does Health AI offer trainings and certifications for individuals in respective countries?
Yeah, so we don't actually, not at this stage, we don't. Of course, things might evolve after the next 3 years. But at this stage, we are really working with countries at the country level or regional level, for example, with the African Medicines Agency or Africa CDC, to certify country regulatory teams. So not yet for individuals in respective countries.
Thank you again, Dr. Peiling, for sharing your time and expertise and for letting us learn more about Health AI's work, as well as our attendees for actively participating in this session. Maybe a few words, Dr. Peiling, before we close.
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot, Cha, again. Yeah, wonderful to be part of this community. It has been really great sharing our work with you. So again, if you have any thoughts about collaboration with us, partnerships with us, please feel free to reach out. And yeah, have a good rest of the week, everyone. Take care.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, everyone. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
participating.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, Cha. Thank you, Peiling. Nice to connect with
Bye,
you.
Satish.